On the Track is a monthly webTV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
I bet you don't know what I'm waiting here for. He satisfies my every need and brings me my special sunflower seeds, yeah. I'm waiting for my macaw.
Stop, that's it. Had enough. There's nothing here to look at, just a load of rubbish going on. This is absolutely ridiculous. John is being so stupid. It makes me want to spit. Velvet Underground cover band indeed. With loads of cartoon macaws and parrots in it. Nobody's ever heard of it. Anyway, have they? Velvet Underground, my foot.
Well, I've heard of them.
And Mother went on to explain to Karina how the Velvet Underground had been formed in 1965 and how they soon came to the attention of notorious pop artist Andy Warhol, who used them as part of his Exploding Plastic Inevitable multimedia show, and how they have been cited as one of the most influential rock bands of the 20th century, and how they were particularly popular amongst the Psittaciformes, or parrot family, and above all how this show should be inclusive and appeal to the parrot community.
Well, I've had enough of this. My name's Karina Downs and welcome to the next episode of On the Track.
I'm not going to be on the track for a while because I'm going to be studying for my exams. Please keep your fingers crossed for me and I'll see you at the end of June.
Well, I thought I had everything sussed for this episode. It's hard doing it without Charlotte, but I'd worked out what I wanted to do. But, as quite often seems to be the case, the universe had other plans for us. Right at the beginning of the month, our old friend and colleague Lee Walker, who was on holiday with his wife in South Africa, had a massive stroke and died a few days later without regaining consciousness. In all the years that I've been running CFZ Press, we have published some remarkable books by some remarkably talented authors. But Richard Freeman and I are both in agreement. The best author, the most talented writer that we have ever had, was Lee Walker. He wrote majestically gothic horror stories, all of which he insisted were true, or had at least a heart of truth behind them, and they were all set deep in the haunted heart of Merseyside. Like Mark Twain with Huckleberry Finn, he wrote in the local dialects and patois. And whilst, if you're from the south like me and someone who's only ever passed through Liverpool on a few occasions, it made editing these books an absolute nightmare. But they were, undoubtedly, the best literature that we have ever published. He was also a very nice chap, and although I am sad that I will never see him again, the fact that I will never read any more of his books is heartbreaking. And then, a few days later, we got the news that David Farrant had died. It was Trevor Beer, best known for his work with the Beast of Exmoor, who first introduced me to David Farrant nearly 30 years ago. And we had kept our acquaintanceship going ever since. We were not particularly close, but we'd always got on well together. For those of you who don't know who David Farrant was, check out any of the things that have been written over the years about the so-called Highgate vampire. There were two figures most associated with the Highgate events, and David was the one who doesn't call himself a bishop. Rest in peace, dude. And then on Easter Sunday at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we lost a member of the family. Prudence, our old dog, a boxer Bulldog cross, who came to us as a rescue 9 years ago, became very bloated and was trying to be sick. And then, less than 20 minutes later, she was gone. Prudence had been rescued from a puppy farm, and we've always suspected that she had been used for dog fighting. But despite that, she was the sweetest, kindest, nicest and best-natured dog that I have ever known, and we feel totally bereft without her. With the loss of all three of these people, and yes, I always consider dogs and cats to be little people in furry coats, neither the CFZ or me in particular will ever be quite the same again. Well, I never wrote a song either about Lee Walker or David Farrant, but as you can see in this vintage clip from the December 2010 episode of On the Track, I did write a song, or rather I stole a song from the Rolling Stones and made it about Prudence. Well, as all regular viewers will know, we lost our 2-year-old collie, Biggles, at the beginning of October from totally unexpected liver failure. Poor little chap. Him dying was completely devastating for the whole CFZ family, but particularly for Karina and me. However, a month later, nearly to the day, we had a new member of the family waddle in through the door. When one door closes, another one opens, and ladies and gentlemen, I think you'll join with me in agreeing that we really need to have sympathy for the Bulldog.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a dog with impressive jowls. I'm well behaved as doggies go, with a minimum of barks and owls. In the month I've been living here, I've become the new CSZ hound. So I thought I'd introduce myself, 'cause I think I'm gonna stick around. Pleased to meet you, hope you guess my name. It's Prudence, and what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. Running around the garden preferably. I was rescued from a puppy farm run by evil chavvy squirts. Then Uncle Richard say if they catch him they're gonna kick him where it hurts. I had lots of puppies, but they always took my pups away. Pleased to meet you, hope you guess my name. It's Prudence, and what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. But now I follow everyone around, try to help them with their chores. Each night I sleep with Mum and Dad and try to keep them awake with my snores. It's fun being the CFZ dog with a garden full of plants.
silly. Stop it.
And yes, the CFZ silliness continues, and if I may coin a phrase, will continue to continue for as long as I'm the director of the CFZ. Why? Because Karina, Richard, Graham, and I, and Carl, and Wally the comedy rhinoceros, and Charlotte and everybody else involved are actually really quite silly people.
This month there have been more strange happenings at Loch Ness.
I think the best thing about this story is the headline, The Loch of the Irish, which makes me think of the John Lennon song, "If you had the Loch of the Irish, you'd think you were just in a mess. If you had the Loch of the Irish, you'd really go up to Loch Ness," or something like that. I tell you what, I really miss Charlotte, because this is the part of the show when Charlotte and I usually sit down together and spend a happy quarter of an hour being rude about the latest load of crappy videos that people have posted up from Loch Ness. And this part of the month that I really rather enjoy, and it's not so much fun without her. However, we do have a mildly interesting story for you this month. You'll remember that last month we talked about a sighting by an Irish gentleman called Owen, I still don't know how to pronounce his name, that was reported in the Scottish Sun. Well, now we go to the Irish Sun, because Owen, whatever his name is, has done it again. Once again, he has had a sighting of what he believes could well be the Loch Ness Monster on the official Loch Ness webcam. Well, I'm actually not sure where I stand on this one legally, but having read the bits that I can find online, I think this counts as fair use, as we are essentially reviewing this piece of video, because if you look at it, and it seems to be taking a heck of a long time to load, if you look at it, it once again shows a very blurry something in that red circle, and to be quite honest, I can't even see that it's moving, because if you look at it compared to the pale line, which is presumably turbulent water above it, it's certainly not moving from side to side, and if it's moving anywhere, it's moving towards the camera. Okay, I've put up the logo here to show that we're not claiming that we own it, but let's have a look at it again. Let's go back and have a look at it again, because if you look, see if you can come in as close as you can, Graham, because I'm not going to break the law by downloading it and enhancing it. But it does appear, if it's moving at all, it's something is moving towards the camera. My big problem of it is not just that it appeared on the day after April Fool's Day, but the fact that, to me, if it's anything, it's a person standing up in a boat. Now, a long time ago, back in 2005, Richard Freeman and I were at Loch Ness making a brief film for, of all people, Penn and Teller, for a TV show called Bullshit. But while we were there, we had a long and very informative chat with the legendary Adrian Shine, who is probably the best known of the current crop of Loch Ness researchers. And he showed us his evidence, which seriously suggests that the Tim Dinsdale movie, which is often touted as the greatest piece of Loch Ness evidence, actually shows a bloke standing up in a boat. And I look at this footage today, and I think it shows exactly the same thing. But I really miss Charlotte suggesting that it looked like a large underwater chicken. Stuff with her is far more fun. I had a couple of emails last month from people complaining that we are giving too much coverage to the climate change protesters. What's this got to do with cryptozoology? They asked. Well, apart from the fact that I started the Centre for Fortean Zoology 27 years ago, and I started this webTV show over a decade ago, and it's my show. I can do exactly what I want. But I'm not just covering these issues because I'm an old hippie with a bad attitude, but I'm covering them because they are pivotally important for every living creature on this planet. But what's the point of finding new species of animals if there's no environment left for them to live in? But I'm afraid if you were cross with me for giving too much coverage to the climate change protesters in Bideford last month, well, cop a load of this. At the exact same time that I'm editing this episode, the Extinction Rebellion group have taken over large swathes of central London, and it doesn't look like they're going to give it up easily. Okay, in the interests of what our transatlantic chums call full disclosure, I just want to say that this footage here is not from the April 2019 protests in central London. It's actually from 5 months ago. But the people at Extinction Rebellion are too busy being arrested and saving the planet to be able to answer any emails for my requests for copyright-free footage. So, because all filmmaking is artifice, really, I'm using this footage from last November instead. But it really doesn't matter, because the message, like the song, remains the same. And this month we've had a horrible wake-up call about what extinction really looks like. This was the Hoan Kiem turtle, enormous freshwater animals that lived in Southeast Asia, particularly in Hoan Kiem Lake in Hanoi, Vietnam. And 10 years or so ago I used to cite this creature, or these creatures, because there were at least 2 of them, as being cryptozoology in action. Huge animals that we knew existed, we knew where they lived, but we didn't know exactly what they were. Although some Vietnamese biologists assert that this is a distinct species, Raphatus leilol, but most people believe that it is one of the Yangtze giant softshell turtles, Raphatus swinhoai, of which there are only 3 known living specimens left in the world. Until this month there are actually 4 known specimens, but the final female died in a Chinese zoo a few days ago. So, unless there are some more specimens, and most importantly female specimens, still alive, lurking in the most remote parts of Southeast Asia where nobody has yet found them, the species is functionally extinct. And this is a horrible, crying shame. The turtle in this piece of film actually is the turtle that died a few days ago. For some years, the Chinese environmental authorities have been trying to fertilize her through artificial insemination. This particular attempt took place about 3 years ago, but the most recent attempt appears to have been too much for her, and she died a few days later. Stories of the Hoan Kiem turtle go back many hundreds of years, and indeed some people have even suggested that the animals are divine. Stories of the Hoan Kiem turtle began in the 15th century with Le Loy, who became an emperor of Vietnam and founder of the Le dynasty. According to legend, Le Loy had the sword named Heaven's Will, given to him by the golden turtle god Kim Quy himself. Le Loy used this sword to help liberate Vietnam from Ming Chinese occupation after 10 years of fighting between 1418 and 1428. According to legend, the sword possessed magical power, which supposedly made Le Loy grow very tall. When he used the sword, it gave him the strength of 1,000 men, and the legend is often used to justify his later rule over Vietnam. One day, not long after the war, when the Chinese had accepted Vietnam's independence, Le Loy was out boating on the lake. Suddenly, the golden turtle god surfaced, prompting Leilwai to return heaven's will and thank the divine turtle for its help. The golden turtle god took back the sword and disappeared into the depths of the lake. Leilwai then renamed the lake Hoan Kiem Lake, or Ho Guam, meaning the lake of the returned sword. It has been hypothesized by Ha Din Duok, the world's leading expert on the Hoan Kiem turtle, that the emperor brought the turtles from Thanh Hoa province and released them in the lake. More recently, Duok and other researchers found skeletons of giant turtles in Yen Bai, Phu Tho and Ho Buen provinces. The last individual, affectionately known to locals as Ku Rua, meaning great-grandfather turtle in Vietnamese, was reported dead on the 19th of January 2016. A local found the body of the turtle floating and reported it to the authorities. The last time the turtle had been spotted alive was a few weeks earlier on the 21st of December 2015. So even being the avatar of a god doesn't protect you from the inexorable march of extinction. By the way, before we go on any further, I just would like to apologise again for not knowing the correct pronunciation of some people's names. I've even been accused of something called cultural imperialism, deliberately mispronouncing people's names in order to point out that Johnny Foreigner is a rum cove. Well, that is complete and utter nonsense, I promise you. The CFZ is a relatively small organisation and nobody apart from Olivia, my secretary and stepdaughter, actually gets paid. And we have far fewer people working for us than we did, say, a decade ago. The government's austerity measures have seen to that. But there is a job which I would really like someone to do for us. We really want a researcher to help us put On the Track together each month. We won't pay you, but there'll be all sorts of other jolly things that may act as some sort of recompense, including the fact that my wife makes lovely cake. So, if you want to work for cake, please drop me an email, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from you all. But now over to a slightly different threat, which is contributing towards the horrific mass extinctions in which we now find ourselves. One of the things that I find particularly grotesque is the way that even in the 21st century, hunters still go out to kill things for fun, just to bring back trophies. And I'm not the only person who thinks this. Over to our friend Bella Lack.
That is the song of the kawaii bird, the last male of the species calling for a partner who will never come. That is what extinction sounds like. It also sounds like the revving of a chainsaw, the thump of a harpoon and the whistling of a bullet. Extinction looks like miles of raised rainforest and oceans with more plastic than fish. It smells like car diesel and pollution. It feels like hopelessness, like the end of beauty and wonder. And my generation will be most affected when plastic and pollution and power have gained supremacy over all else. On the subject of power, we must also talk about trophy hunting, the ultimate misuse of power. 660 days is the average gestation period for an elephant. 0.2 seconds is the average time taken for a human to pull a trigger. When we look at it like that, it already seems horrific. But what about the fact that a trophy hunter does not only kill one animal, he leaves behind a herd of elephants, or a pride of lions, or a tower of giraffes. He leaves behind a family, sometimes babies, sometimes sisters or brothers or friends. And it sounds like anthropomorphism, but we know now that many animals feel empathy and compassion and, unfortunately, grief. Grief so deep that babies stay by their dead mothers for weeks on end, or herds of elephants return year after year, to mourn over the bones of their loved ones. So when they feel emotions on the same level as humans, shouldn't we, at the very least, not harm them? In every culture and every country, as children, we are taught to respect, not ruin, and we are taught to show compassion, not corruption. So why is it then that these rules don't apply to all adults? But today it's not only cruelty that we are standing up against, it is also the extinction of much of the natural world. We have entered into the 6th mass extinction, and nothing could have made that clearer than over 1.4 million young people striking off school last month to ask for a future, not only for ourselves, but for our planet and the species that we share it with. And we asked your generation, because although you are not the first generation to know we are destroying our planet, you are the last who can do anything about it. When I was very young, I was, just as many young children are, fascinated with animals, with earthworms and snails and birds, with dogs and elephants and primates. All young children are. You can see it in their eyes as they fondly stroke an earthworm or watch ants constructing their nest. It is this passion which we must rekindle. Every religion and culture has a different notion of paradise, but they're all essentially the same. They're all lush and green and full of wildlife. It is that image which we must hang on to as we move forward. In one speech, I can't change the planet, but I can change mindsets, and they're not as different as they may seem. Our path ahead is clear. Our leaders must lead, but so must we. Young people all over the world are standing up and not only asking for a future, but creating it. And today, so are we. We are fighting back. Today, the power belongs to those of us who see wildlife as individuals, not as capital to benefit and exploit. Today, we are raising our voices, speaking from our hearts and speaking the truth. It will be extremely difficult, but as a great activist once said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent on things that matter. Thank you.
Now, boys and girls, what do we have here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know that I'm an avowed anti-capitalist, and you're probably tired of me saying so in this show, but I do sometimes sell things. And the CFZ sometimes sells things, and there are members of the extended CFZ family who do all sorts of interesting things, which I think would be of interest to you people out there in consumer land. So, if I can coin a term from the late lamented Ivan T. Sanderson, let me tell you about some of these things. 3 years ago I wrote a book called The Song of Pan, which told the story of how my dear long-suffering wife Karina and I ended up having a hairy humanoid forest godling, to steal Kipling's nomenclature, living in the airing cupboard in what used to be my father's dressing room. You can take it as fiction if you like, or you can believe every word I say. Believe it or not, it really doesn't matter to me one way or the other. This book continues the story roughly from where it left off, although the vast majority of it tells the story of a few days in the autumn of 2015, and explains some of the things left hanging in the first book. I'd like to think you could read this book as a standalone volume, though, as an impecunious author with family, animals and forest godling to support, I can always do with the cash if you'd like to buy the previous book. Although some of the characters in this book are real, whatever that means, in order to protect my kneecaps, it's probably better if you assume that everyone here, except for me and Karina, is completely made up. I would warn you that if you are of a nervous disposition or easily offended, you will find parts of this book both offensive and upsetting. The sex, violence, drug abuse, occultism, pornography, illegal firearms, politics, religion, and not a little sociology. But there's also love, kindness, faith and redemption. Caveat lector, dudes.
I've always felt a curious affinity with this species of bird, probably because for 30 years I was a secretary, and this is a secretary bird. a highly specialised ground-dwelling bird of prey from an older family than the other Old World raptors. It is native to sub-Saharan Africa and is sadly non-migratory, so will never be a natural visitor to these shores. But I think you'd be surprised quite how many completely unexpected avian visitors Britain does have, and that's what this segment of On the Track is all about. Bernard Heuvelmans himself said that cryptozoology wasn't the study of monsters, but the study of unexpected animals, and in the UK what could be more unexpected than vultures, spoonbills and albatrosses? Yes, even the kings of the Southern Ocean have been seen in British waters. 2 species of albatross have been recorded in the UK in recent years. Not all of our feathered visitors are quite so spectacular, but nearly every day there is something exciting to greet the watcher of the skies.
Hello everybody. My cue card girl for the time being, while Charlotte is away, is my mother. And we also have Archie, who is bored already because he's yawning. Right, here we go. A hoopoe, a rare migratory bird visitor, was spotted at grading on the Isle of Wight on the 17th of April. The RSPB says that Britain enjoys around 100 individual hoopoes that visit each spring as birds migrating north to Europe from Africa overshoot and land on the south coast of England. The birder, who was one of the first to see the bird, said there had been one at Shanklin in 2018, but they generally go several years between sightings. This was only his 3rd sighting of such a bird in 50 plus years on the island. A marsh harrier, a bird of prey rarely seen in Northern Ireland, was seen on the banks of Loch on 14th of April. The birder who spotted it also noticed that it had green wing tags, which indicates that it was from the Norfolk area. Although only an occasional sight in Northern Ireland, it has become one of the great success stories of conservation in Great Britain, having once become extinct in the United Kingdom. According to the RSPB, the bird is the largest of the harriers and is usually spotted flying low over reed beds and grazing marshes. Its wingspan, typically 115 to 130 centimetres, is raised in a prominent and characteristic V shape. Today there are estimated to be around 400 breeding pairs in the UK, with most found in eastern and southeast England and parts of Scotland. A rare white-coloured kite was spotted in Powys last month, but it is unclear whether it is a leucistic or white-red kite, of which there are only about 6 in Wales, or a kite with albinism. Back in 2004, 2 white-red kites were spotted nearby, and there was also a sighting in Aberporth in 2011. As explained many times in this segment, leucism is caused by a partial loss of pigmentation resulting in white feathers on a bird, and unlike albinism, it is caused by a reduction in multiple types of pigment, not just the melanin. One noticeable difference between the 2 conditions is that animals with albinism typically have red eyes, while leucistic animals have usual coloured eyes. After seeing footage on social media, presenter Iola Williams said it looked like a white kite, saying that an albino kite is extremely rare, but it is impossible to tell from the video if this is an example of one. Only about 70 Pallas's warblers show up in the UK each year, and one was seen recently in Norfolk in the garden of the fishing boat pub in East Runton. At just 9 centimetres long and weighing just 7 grams, it is one of the smallest of all British birds and can fly several thousand miles to Britain from the forests of northern Russia. One of Britain's rarest birds has returned to North Wales after migrating all the way from North Africa. A female osprey known as Blue 24 was spotted at Lynn Brennig Reservoir on the Denbigh Moors. The 9-year-old bird successfully reared a chick last year and was waiting patiently for her mate to arrive. It is 12 months since a pair of ospreys laid a clutch of eggs on the nesting platform at Lynn Brennig, but Blue 24, who was born at Rutland Water, has arrived back earlier than normal. The typical lifespan of an osprey is 7 to 10 years, although they can grow to be as old as 25. Last year, Blue 24 reared a chick, but it is not expected back in the UK for another few years. The last one of this episode is what is thought to be an African pied crow has been spotted hanging around with seagulls in West Cornwall. If it is such a bird, then it is exceptionally rare, with only 3 recent sightings of such a bird, according to the Rare Bird Alert website. The website lists the pied crow, quite probably the same one, at Land's End earlier this month, along with only 2 other instances of such a bird in England this year, one in Yorkshire and the other in Sussex. The lady who saw it said it was hanging around with a jackdaw and a pair of seagulls by the recycling bins in the car park in St Just. Is that how you say in St Just? Is it said how it's spelt?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It might be possibly St Just. I don't know. Apologies, Cornish people.
Yes. If it is an African pied crow, it is possible that the bird could have escaped from captivity or come to the UK on a ship. If it's exceptionally rare, I don't see why there's been 3 seen so far this year. Seems a bit odd.
No.
It's a bit of an oxymoron. Anyway, if it's exceptionally rare, and 3 have been seen since January, and that's only 4 months.
Yeah, but if they're all in Cornwall, they're like...
No, there aren't, I said. One was in 2 other instances, one in Yorkshire, one in Sussex.
Well, there was one in Yorkshire last year.
Anyway, whilst we have this conversation, it is the end of this thing, so it's now, I can't speak, it is now over to Jonathan for his usual look at new and rediscovered species. So, it's goodbye.
I'm sure that I've said before how cherry-picking the animals I talk about in this segment of On the Track each month is one of the most difficult jobs that I regularly do. There is such a wide diversity of new species being discovered across our increasingly beleaguered planet that I truly am spoiled for choice. Of course, some of these are animals that have been hiding in plain sight, like this new snake. Naja ashii is a new species of giant spitting cobra from eastern and northeastern Africa, except it isn't exactly new. The species was previously regarded as a colour phase of the black-necked spitting cobra Naja nigricollis. However, mitochondrial DNA sequence data show it to be more closely related to another snake, Naja mosambica. The new species is diagnosable from all other African spitting cobras by the possession of a unique clade of mitochondrial DNA haplotypes and a combination of colour pattern and scalation characteristics. Its distribution includes the dry lowlands of northern and eastern Kenya, northeastern Uganda, southern Ethiopia and lowland Somalia. The specific name Ashii is a dedication to the memory of the late James Ash, 1925 to 2004, in recognition of his contribution to East African herpetology, of the inspiration he gave to others working on the herpetofauna of this part of the world, and in particular for his early recognition of the distinctiveness of the species that now bears his name. A new species of dwarf goby, Eviota ganawanai, has been found in the Fak-Fak Peninsula in the Bird's Head seascape of western New Guinea. In life it has a maroon stripe down the midline of its body, with elongate white spots above it posteriorly and 2 white lines over the abdomen. The species is named in honour of Dr. Tiane Gunawan, one of Indonesia's foremost marine conservationists, who has dedicated the past 2 decades to expanding the marine protected area network of West Papua and formulating policies to protect biodiverse marine ecosystems contained therein. Dr. Ganawan also helped plan and launch the Marine Biodiversity Survey of the Fak-Fak coastline that led to the discovery of this species. It is currently known only from Karas Island, but is presumably more widespread along the poorly explored Fak-Fak coastline, but unlikely to be found as far north as the very well surveyed Raja Ampat Islands. Angola and the Democratic Republic of the Congo are relatively unknown in terms of their herpetological diversity, quite possibly because periods of political instability have made them difficult to explore. based on specimens collected in the Congolese region of the Katanga in the northwest of Angola during the first decades of the 20th century. Two separate researchers independently suggested, based on morphological and coloration differences, that populations of T. megalura could belong to a new race. Now researchers have compared specimens of T. megalura, including the type specimen, with Angolan and Katangan museum specimens, as well as newly collected specimens from Angola. Coloration pattern and morphological characteristic, in combination with substantial divergence in the mitochondrial DNA, confirm the distinctiveness of the West Central African form, and it has now been described as a new species. The species Trachylepis Raymond Laurenti is named after Raymond F. Laurent, 1917 to 2005, Belgian herpetologist who specialised in African amphibians and reptiles and contributed significantly to current knowledge of the Angolan and Congolese herpetofaunas. The English name Lawrence long-tailed skink has been proposed. Dendrophsophus necronastes is a new species of the Dendrophsophus veleucolyptophalus group from the Atlantic forests of the southern region of the state of Bahia in Brazil. It can be distinguished from all species of the Deilecophalatus group on the basis of morphological characters, especially its unique dorsal pattern and snout in dorsal view, advertisement calls and divergence in mitochondrial DNA gene sequences. These results also highlight the palimpsest that is the past relationship between the Atlantic and Amazon forests. This little frog is known from only 2 ponds at its type locality in Almadina in the southern state of Bahia. It call in temporary ponds, usually in the surrounding shrubs between 30 and 150 centimetres high. The Trimerosaurus popiorum complex is a very complex group of pit vipers, although it is the only popia species known from China. During the past 2 years, 5 adult popia specimens, 4 males and a female, were collected from Yangtze County in southern Yunnan. Molecular, morphological and ecological data show distinct differences from all known species. They have now been described as a new species, Trimerosaurus yingjianensis. Morphologically, the new species is distinct from other popia species by a combination of characters, including 1. The dorsal body is olive drab without the crossbands on the scales that are a feature of so many of the green pit vipers. 2. A conspicuous bicolour ventrolateral stripe present on each side of males, although absent in the females, and 3. Eyes of fire-brick red in both genders. This new viper was found in Yangtze County in Yunnan province. At its typical locality, the species prefers to inhabit streams about 1,000 metres above sea level and perch on branches waiting for prey. The specific name Yingjianensis refers to the location of the type specimens. The English common name has been suggested as the Yingjiang green pit viper. That's all we have time for in New and Rediscovered for this episode, but I would repeat what I said at the beginning. This is cherry-picked. It's only a very small proportion of the species that have been discovered, both animals and plants, in this last month. And if you are interested in such things, I strongly recommend that you go and check out the Nova Taxa blog, which is where we find most of our information, both for this segment of On the Track and for the New and Rediscovered section in Animals and Men. I truly can't recommend it highly enough. I would like to also point out that whereas every effort has been made to contact the copyright holders of these photographs, we believe that we are justified in reproducing them in this not-for-profit video using the policy of fair use. However, if there is anybody who believes that their intellectual or legal rights have been infringed, please contact us and we will do our best to bring the matter to a mutually acceptable solution.
But first, there's this.
In the next month's episode...
So what's in next month's episode? To tell the truth, I haven't a clue. I know that Charlotte isn't, but we still miss her terribly, and I don't know, we're just going to have to make it up as we go along.
And then there is this.
I can't believe that it was the summer of 2017 when we actually relaunched this show. And this time has gone very, very fast. Our friend Louis has set up a Patreon campaign, which is a very real and sensible way that if you want to support not just this show but the Centre for Fortean Zoology, you can do so by going to the link here. And in the meantime, Charlotte and I would just like to say thank you very much for your support. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed watching it. It's been a strange and fairly disturbing month in many ways, and I have to admit I'll be glad when it's over. And I've just thought of something that's going to be next month's episode, because by then we will have had our annual Beltane fire, and we'll be able to talk a little bit about that. I want to say thank you to everybody who's come together for this episode. Thank you for all you've done for me and for this show. I really couldn't do it without you, and I'm very, very grateful. I want to say a big shout out to Charlotte. I hope your revising is going well, and I hope things are working out for you, so you'll be back again with us as soon as possible, because it's really weird doing it without you. Now, I suppose I have been reliably informed that I'm supposed to talk now about social media, which is a subject about which I know, well, practically nothing really. But if you want to, you can like this video by clicking on this thingy here. And if you want to be informed about when the next episode is up, you can ring this bell thingy here. And if you want to say how much you like us and how clever we are and how good looking Archie and I are, you can say so on various social media thingies. Or you can visit our Facebook page, or you can even come and talk to me on Twitter, CFZJohn, because Twitter is actually the only one of these social media things that I actually quite like. Anyway, I've got that bit out of the way. I always find it really rather vulgar to doing this amount of sort of self-publicity, but I'm reliably informed I have to do it, and if I don't, I will have my various people in my close team to apologise to and to answer to, so it has to be done. But apart from all that, we'll be back in a month's time. So until then, be seeing you.